Hey designer, Alex here, welcome to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can design a shop page, especially if you're dealing with products such as shoes, and we're going to add some animations and some spice to it to make it look a lot more interesting to the visitors and to make them stay for longer and hopefully buy the product in question. So let's get started. Alright, let's get started with the design, but before we do, I just want to preview how it's going to look like at the end one more time. So we have a nice big shoe right here in the middle, and we have a gradient behind it, make it sort of pop right in front of viewers' eyes. Right here on the left we have some basic information, including the description of the shoe, as well as the available colors and the price. Users can then add to cart, and the cart icon is going to pop right here at the top. Or other solution is to take them straight to cart to check in from here. It's really up to you and the developers and the client how you're going to fit that all in. But basically we have this slider right here at the bottom, and when the user changes and clicks right here, the shoe is going to switch and the name of the shoe is going to switch right here. So it goes from London, as you can see, back to the runner, and this circle is going to rotate a little bit, as you can see right here, as well as all of these background shapes, and the main circle is going to change the color. So it's going to go from this original gradient to this gradient. So the main point of all of these animations and transitions is to give the user a little bit more spice and a little bit more interest into the page, so they can scroll easily, and this is going to extend because they can see that they have 6 choices right here, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to choose because it's going to show all the available shoes and the colors right here. And for example, if they click, then it can take them to the dedicated page of the shoe if they click on the shoe right here, and then they can learn more about the sizes, about the materials, about different fits and size charts and so on. So that's basically the idea of the entire page. So if I close this preview, this is how the original document is going to look like. And I really encourage you to download it. I'm going to put the link down in the description, so you can simply click and download it and use it into your own personal or commercial projects. So basically we have some main colors right here. I didn't add character styles, but we can add them if, for example, now as we design, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to apply those character styles later on if you want to follow along with this tutorial. So basically we have all of these different components, from logo to different shoes. We have a search icon, menu icon, these arrows, social media icons and so on, and I'm going to show you how you can use those components inside of your design. So finally, let's get started. I'm going to click on my artboard, which is 1920 by 1080, which is basically a standard web size. I'm going to click on my layout, and I'm going to choose this default layout of which Adobe XD gives me, which is basically 12, 16, 122 and 140. So I'm going to leave this right here and pause it if you want to, so you can follow along with this exact same measurements, but you should basically have them because it's default what Adobe XD gives you. And what we're going to do at this point is we're going to create some background lines. So I'm going to call them grid lines. And basically I'm going to choose my lines like so, and I'm going to basically draw a line like this. For the border, I'm going to choose a color. Let me click right here, and the color is going to be 252525, so nice dark gray color. And basically I'm going to choose a height right here of 889, like so, and for the width I'm just going to choose 1. You can leave the fill at white, it really doesn't matter. So if I switch this back off and hide my layout, you can see it's just a regular basic line, and we're going to use it because we're going to create a lot more lines to go along our grid. So if I choose my layout once again, I'm going to click right here, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see, position it in the middle like so. And I'm going to make sure that my line clicks right inside of this place. Now you can use a repeat grid, and I'm going to do that now because we're going to need to create 12 different lines. So I'm going to need to zoom in a little bit closer. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so like this, and make sure that your repeat grid ends with this line. And I'm going to basically position them on the left side of each of these columns. So to do that, all you have to do is simply hover right here and extend them. So basically they need to be somewhere around here. So if I zoom in a little bit closer, they need to align with the left edge of our grid. And if everything is not perfect, then you have to ungroup them and do it all by hand. But as you can see, this one is good, this one, this one. So basically all of them are good when you create the perfect sizing between them. And if I hover right here, you can see that it's 137. So if yours is 137, then you are good to go. I'm going to ungroup my grid, hit Ctrl G, and I'm going to call this grid lines. And finally, what I'm going to do for my grid lines is lower the opacity to 10%. You can hit 1 on your keyboard, or you can simply jump right here and lower the opacity down. So if I click right here and hide my layout, you can barely see them, but they are there just to add some spice to our design. So basically they are positioned in the middle, and now we can move on with our design and add some additional elements. So I'm going to jump right here and I'm going to drag and drop my logo. I'm going to position it right around here. Next, I'm going to move on and add my search icon as well as my menu icon. So menu icon is going to be located right here on the very right of our page. So we're going to find it right here, drag and drop it in place. I'm going to position it right around here, basically. And I'm going to do the same for my search icon. So basically just drag and drop it in place. Make sure they are in the center. And we can use, for example, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so maybe 60 pixels from the menu icon right here. And I'm going to basically select them like this, make sure they are in the center like this. I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group them, and I'm going to call this group nav, because that's going to be our navigation. Next, I'm going to stick it right here to the top, the whole shift and bottom arrow, 1, 2, 3, 4, to position it 40 pixels from the top. So now let's move on and add some other elements. So you can quickly add a text, for example. So I can click on my text tool and simply click right here. I'm going to call this Nike Air Max. Make sure that this is Open Sans font. And for it, let's choose a size of 40, for example. So let's choose a nice big size of 40. Make sure it's left aligned so it aligns with our grid. And basically I'm going to duplicate this text. You can hold your Alt key or hit Ctrl D to duplicate this text, and I'm going to call this one London. And for it, let's see, I can, for example, increase the size to 90, like so. Make sure this is at bold. And finally, make sure that all letters are capital, and you can do it like so, or you can type it out yourself. So that's the amazing feature that Adobe XD added a few months back. So I can position it to be at 40, for example. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If you think that that's too much, maybe we can reduce it back to 20. And for the color, let's see, I can add, for example, let me just check. So I can click right here, and here is our color. You're going to receive it with your document. So when you download it, you are going to click on these colors and you're going to have these color swatches right here. So I'm going to hit Ctrl D on this one. I'm going to hide my first one, and on this one, I'm going to add a runner, because that's going to be the second text that we are going to end. So I can even change this to London, like so. And I'm going to position them in order as they should be. Next, I'm going to create a mask. So basically choose a rectangle tool and make sure you create a nice mask like this. Call it mask, like this. And make sure to include London and runner. So shift and select them, then shift, control or command M, and I'm going to call this one mask, like so. Next, I'm going to hide my London, or you can simply click on the runner and hold your shift key until it moves out of the way. So basically until it aligns with our mask like so. And next, we are going to create this paragraph text. So I'm going to choose my Nike Air mask and I'm going to position my paragraph outside. So let's first group this. I'm going to call it title. And I'm going to position it below nav. I'm going to hit Ctrl D on this text, move it outside of my folder, and then simply position it to be, for example, 40 from this one. So Shift 1, 2, 3, 4. And next I'm going to simply copy my text. And for the size, let's use 24, like so. And now make sure it's at 40. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, let's create our colors. So let me quickly move this a bit down. And for the colors, we're going to simply create nice round circles. So I'm going to create a circle which is going to be at 40 by 40. So 40 by 40. And this is going to be our color 1. And for the color 1, for the fill, we can use some of these colors. So you can use this one, for example. And I'm going to remove the border because we don't need it. And I'm going to add a shadow like so. And our shadow is going to be 5, 5, and 5. So nice and round shadow, really looks great on this design. Next, I'm going to hit Ctrl D to duplicate it. I'm going to remove my shadow. This is going to be white. And let's see, maybe we can make it 20 by 20. And that's going to be our selector. But I made a few mistakes. Hit Ctrl D, call this selector. For the color, I'm going to include my shadow. And for the selector, I'm going to choose the color white, like so, and make sure it's 20 by 20. Next, I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to position them to be in the middle, like so. I'm going to position it to be roughly around here. And for the selector, let's include the shadow as well, so same shadow, because we want to create it basically to look exactly the same as the color. Next, let's create a second color. So I'm going to hit Ctrl D, and I'm going to move this color to somewhere around here, call this color 2. And next I'm going to duplicate it one more time, call this color 3, like so. And I'm going to space them out to be at 70 pixels between each other. So you can select them like so, and make sure to position it at 70, like this. And then simply move this to be at 70 as well. So let's do that one more time. So Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just to make sure. Now for the color 2, I'm going to choose this color. So it's A8949E. And finally, for the third color, let's use this main color, like so. I'm going to leave the shadows in for now, but I'm going to hide them a bit later, and I'm going to show you how you can create some nice hover effects. And then later on, we are going to explore how you can add those hover effects into your design. So first, let's group all of these, and let's call these colors. And let's move it 40 pixels down from this. So Shift 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, I'm going to create my price. And for the price, let's simply duplicate this text. So hit Ctrl D, make sure it's at 40. And for the price, let's use 98. And let's use Open Sans 60. And I'm going to use bold, like so. So once again, make sure it's at 40, make sure it's left aligned like it is right here. Position it below colors. And finally, I'm going to jump ahead and create our button. So hit Ctrl D on your text, position it right here. I'm going to type in add to cart. Make sure it's center aligned like so. Position it right here. And I'm going to create our button. So let's see, for the button, we can add something like 260 with 80. And for the text inside of our button, we can, let's first call this BTN. I'm going to position it below our add to cart text. And for the text itself, let's use, let's see, Open Sans. Let's go for 28. You can leave it at 24 if you want to, but I'm going to position it to be 28. So I can position them like so. Now for the button itself, let's see, we can add some corner radius to it. We can add 10. So nice light corner radius. And for the color, let's use this main color. For the text, I'm going to simply change the color to white like so. And I'm going to group these two and call them BTN like so. And let's move this down. So let's move it at 60, for example. So shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's leave it here for now. Next up, I'm going to create my circle. So it's going to go right here in the center. So to do that, I'm going to simply use my round ellipse tool. And I'm going to create a circle. I'm going to call it BG Circle 1. Because that's going to be our main circle for the first shoe. Here you have shoe 1 gradient, simply click on it and you can then jump inside your gradient and adjust it. We're going to go with the darker color right here, lighter color right here. So simply click on these dots, adjust them however you want, and I'm going to position them like this, for example. Next, I'm going to position that circle to be right in the center like so. And now let's place our shoe. So we're going to jump inside, use shoe number 1, simply position it right here, and you can position it in the center to be like so. So if I remove our grid to see where we are right now, as you can see, we have these nice grid lines basically in the back, giving it some nice shapes and some interest to it. Next, we have this nice gradient circle in the center. We have the shoe, which is our hero product, obviously. And then we're going to add some additional elements right here to the right to make sure that the shoe is in the center and that information surrounds it on all sides. So now let's quickly group this, and I'm going to call this shoe 1. But before we move on, we can perhaps add shoe number 2 into this mix. So let's quickly duplicate our circle. So hit Ctrl D. I'm going to position it on top right here. I'm going to call this BG Circle 2. And I'm going to apply this gradient to it. I'm going to jump right here and I'm going to rotate them. So basically the same thing like I did for the first shoe. Right around here is good. Next, I'm going to position shoe number 2. So I'm going to position it basically to around here. Make sure that it kind of aligns with the first shoe because obviously these shoes are a bit different. So for example, right around here is good. Next, I'm going to group these two and call it shoe number 2. And let's organize these groups a little bit better. So let's see, we can position these below BTN so that all of these elements are on top, obviously, and these shoes are at the bottom. I'm going to hide my shoe number 2 for the moment. And next, let's create our pagination. So for the pagination, I'm going to use my rectangle and I'm going to first include our grid back. And let's call this selector holder. So let's rename it, because this is going to be just a background shape which is going to hold our selection. And let's include it back and see how that looks like. So basically, let's use the size of 260 for the width and 20 for the height. I'm going to position it just a little bit to here, for example. And for the corner radius, let's have a nice corner radius of 10. And let's give it some nice light gray color. And we're going to remove the border. Next, we're going to create the selector itself. So for the selector, you can simply reduce this size if you want. But I'm going to include the size of 63 with 20. And for the color, we're going to go with the main color. Make sure it's left aligned like it is right here. And that's basically it for our selector. I'm going to move it all the way down to here. And I'm going to group it and call it pagination, like so. And I'm going to position it just a little bit better. So from the bottom, let's move it to be at 144. So shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 144 pixels from the weight down. And next I'm going to select all of these and make sure that they align with our pagination like so. So that's basically it for our alignment. Let's now move on and create some pagination. So what I'm going to do is jump in right here and use my left arrow, drop it inside, use my right arrow, drop it inside as well. And I'm going to choose this text, for example. I'm going to duplicate it and simply move it right here. I'm going to move it inside of our folder, and inside of it, I'm going to create 0, 1 space, then this align, and then 0, 6, because it's going to show that it's 1 of 6. Let's see, it's at 24. Let's position it to be at 28, let's say, just to make it nice and clear a little bit more. Now let's organize these arrows a little bit better. So I'm going to position my left arrow right here. I'm going to make sure it's to the left. Right arrow, so you can select them like so. And then simply, let's see, 20 pixels. That works, maybe 30. Yeah, 30 is better. And I'm going to position this right here. Then make sure that this is at the center, so you can select them all like so. And now what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to create a mask, and inside of that mask I'm going to have this go from 1 to 2. So same like we did for this title right here, I'm going to do the same for this one, but it's going to be a little bit different. So what we're going to need is 4 copies of this text. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And for these copies, I'm going to hide these ones like so. And this first one is going to be 0, 1. So make sure that all of them are left aligned. Now for this second one, let's use 0, 2, like so. Then hide it. Then this is going to contain just this line, like so. And finally, for this one, we're going to position it to be right aligned. And we're going to simply delete it and leave 6 inside. Next, I'm going to position this until it aligns with our text, like so. Then hit Shift 1 time, and then use 1 and 2. Select them, and make sure you hit Shift 1 more time, so it's basically an even space between these numbers, this line, and these numbers right here. This is in the center anyways because we didn't change the position on number 6. And what I'm going to do is basically create another rectangle right around here. I'm going to call it mask, and I'm going to select mask 1 and 2, Shift Control M to mask it. I'm going to call this mask as well. Then I'm going to simply position the text number 2 outside of our way, so it basically leaves you with this. And we're going to use that number 2 obviously when we are going to switch from this state to the next state and show the shoe number 2. So that's basically it for our pagination. As you can see, it's really easy and simple to create. Next, I'm going to show you how you can create this line and add some social media icons as well. So to create the line, I'm basically going to use my rectangle tool, like so. And let's call it vertical line. So double click right here. And I'm going to use the height of 180. Height should be right here, so 180. And the width is going to be 5. So basically like that. Next, I'm going to use this color, so light gray. I'm going to remove our border, and I'm going to position it to be right aligned with this arrow right here. Next, I'm going to take the text from here. So let's use this one, hit Ctrl D, position it outside. Make sure you move it just a little bit. Next, I'm going to type in share. And I'm going to leave this to be at this color. I'm going to hold my shift key and rotate it. And all you have to do is simply hover right here over this dot, click and hold, and then hold shift, position it right here. Next, I'm going to include my social media icons. So let's use Twitter first. Make sure it's right aligned to our grid, Facebook as well. And now let's simply order them. But before we do, let's quickly add some corner radius to our vertical line so it looks exactly the same as all our other elements. So simply add 10 for the corner radius. Next, I'm going to use this share text, move it all the way to here. Then hold shift 1, 2 to move it 20 pixels down. And for the icons themselves, I'm going to move them 40 pixels. So shift 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do the same for the Facebook. So simply hold your shift key until you are there. You're going to have some half pixels some of the time because of the way icons look, and simply select them all and then align them like this. So now it looks much better than it used to. So basically I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group them. I'm going to call this share and I'm going to move it all the way down. And finally, I'm going to position it 100 pixels up from our pagination. So basically align it like so, shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's basically it for this share part. Now, all we need to do is simply create some overlay elements that are going to add some spice to our design. And that's basically it for our design. So to add some overlay elements, all you have to do is simply use some of these shapes. So I'm going to draw a nice big circle. And let's see, maybe we can add the size of 30 with 30. And I'm going to remove the border, and for the color, let's use this nice dark color. And for the position, let's maybe position it somewhere around here. That's good. I'm going to duplicate it just a little bit and call this circle. You can double click right here, Control C, then Control V if you don't want to type in one more time. Next, I'm going to create a nice triangle, and I'm going to go with 30. With 30. Let's see how that looks like. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to use exactly the same fill, and maybe we can stretch it out even more. So maybe something like this. I can rotate it just a little bit and position it to somewhere around here. I'm going to call this triangle. And finally, let's use a nice square. And for the square, let's use the size of 30 by 30. Let's use the same color. So use this color, call this square, and I'm going to position it down right around here, let's say, maybe below this line, and I can simply rotate it just a little bit, just so you can add some spice to it. And next, we are going to group these and call them shapes, because they are going to be our shapes. And I'm going to move this group just above the pagination. And finally, what we need is another shape. So I'm going to call it overlay, and I'm going to use my ellipse tool and draw a nice big circle like this. I'm going to call it back circle, like so. And I'm going to call this circle small circle, because it's going to go on top of this circle. So I'm going to reposition it just a little bit to somewhere around here. And I'm going to position it on top of our back circle. Now for the back circle itself, we are going to hide the fill because we don't need it. And for the border, we are going to use this nice light gray color. And let's see, for the stroke width, let's use 5. And that's good. And that's basically it. It's just there to add some nice look and feel to our design. I'm going to position it somewhere around here, just so it doesn't hide the logo of the shoe. And for this circle, I'm going to position it somewhere around here. That looks good. And that's basically it for our design. If you want to play around a little bit more with these shapes, you can perhaps reposition this to be right here, to be in the middle for this first state, and for the second state, then you can move it away. Now let's finally group these, and I'm going to call it overlay circle, because it's going to be overlaid on top of our shoe. I'm going to position it right here just above our button, or I can maybe even go below the button and then just leave all this into the background. That's basically it for our design. I'm going to hide my grid lines to show you how that looks like. As you can see, it's really nice and clean looking design. And finally, what we need is we need to animate all of these. Now you can add multiple states to multiple components to create these, but what I'm just going to do is simply create some variations to this design, and I'm going to show you how you can do that right now. So to start with the animations, let's first start with the easiest part. Let's deal with the colors first. So for these colors, I'm going to hit Ctrl K on these two, just to create components from them. And for this default state, let's leave it like it is. And for the hover state, let's simply add a hover state. Let's do the same for this one, so add a hover state. And on this default state, let's simply remove the shadow. So I'm going to jump inside, and for the default state, I'm going to remove the shadow. And hover state is going to leave it as it is. So if I hover, let's do that one more time. So I'm going to jump back a few times and do it once again. So as you can see, shadows are 5, 5, 5. So I'm going to simply remove the shadow and do the same for this one. Next, hit Ctrl K. Ctrl K one more time. For this one, let's add a hover state, and for the hover state itself, I'm going to copy and paste this design. So basically all you have to do is copy this color so that we can have this color, and I'm going to jump inside, hit copy, then jump inside our hover state and hit paste. And we need just that color back, so I'm going to paste it back in. So that's going to be our hover state. And let's test it out really quickly. So go to the default state, go to the hover state. So if I preview it and then hover, you can see that it shows on hover this background shadow. So I'm going to do the same thing one more time, but for this one. So I'm going to simply copy this, right click, copy, jump inside this one, create a hover state like so, and inside of the hover state simply hit paste appearance. I'm going to go back, click on main color because that's our main color obviously, and if I preview it one more time, so go to the default state, hit preview, you can see that now we have hover on these colors. So that's basically it for the colors. Let's now move on to some more interesting things. And let's now deal with our shoes. So for our shoes, let's do some really easy things. So for the shoe number 2, for the BG circle, on this first one, opacity is going to be 0. And the shoe itself, we are going to rotate it just a little bit. You can hold your shift key if you want to, like so, and maybe bring it back just a little bit to here. Then hold shift and simply move it outside of your artboard completely. And that's basically going to be our first state. Now for the second state, I'm going to duplicate my artboard. So click on the artboard, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it. And then for it, we are going to do the same thing, but with this other shoe. So let's bring a shoe number 2 back into position. So position it back to here. You can hold your shift key if you want to, maybe right around here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And for the BG circle, this is going to be at 100. And for the shoe number 1, now this is going to be at 0. And the shoe itself, we are going to move it up. So you can select it, hold your shift key and simply move it up. And I'm going to rotate it right around here, let's say, and simply move it out of the way completely. Now for these background shapes, let's use this circle. Maybe we can move it in a little bit. Maybe we can move this triangle out a little bit, let's say up to here. And maybe we can move this square to the left, let's say up to here. And for this entire overlay circle, simply click right here on the entire folder and move it up to here, for example, just so that we can add some nice visual interest. Now let's deal with the text. I'm going to double click right here, and I'm going to position my runner text in place of the London text, and the London text itself, I'm going to hold Shift and nudge it out all of the way. And I'm going to do the same for this text right here. So if you remember, we created 1 and 2, and I'm going to jump inside my mask and position the text number 2 right here in the center. And text number 1, I'm going to move it out of the way. So basically we are doing exactly the same thing as we did for this text. So you can see London runner number 1, number 2 right here. Finally, I'm going to extend this selector holder. And for the selector holder, let's use the size, let's see, of 103 for the width, and the height is obviously going to stay exactly the same. And that's basically it for our design. We created everything from scratch, as you can see, and as I said, you can download this file, link is going to be down in the description, and you can use it to get exactly the same results like I did right here. You can obviously play around with the position of these shapes. You can add more or less of these shapes. You can add this selector to jump from color to color. You can change the color of the shoes themselves, but not to make this tutorial a lot longer than it needs to be. All we have to do now is prototype these two, and I'm going to show you how you can do that right now. So basically, to prototype them, all you have to do is basically select where you want your users to click, and in our case we want them to click on these arrows. So simply choose right arrow and move it to here, because when they click on the right arrow, we want to make sure that it goes to this artboard. And now for the animation itself, let's see, we can add tap for the trigger. For the transition, let's use auto animate. Let's use ease in out, and duration is going to be nice and long, 1 second, because we don't want the duration to be too short, because then these shoes are going to simply fly in and out randomly, and we want to keep these shoes flowing in nicely. You can add this to be even longer if you want, but I found to be good at 1 second. Finally, I want to add the transition back, because if user wants to click and go to the previous shoe, all you have to do is click on the left arrow, then simply draw this arrow. It's going to contain exactly the same settings like you chose, and that's basically it for our design. All we have to do now is preview how it looks like. So you can click on your artboard, click right here, let's enlarge it, and you can see when I click, it's going to switch between these shoes, and it's going to change the colors of our circles in the center. It's going to change from London to runner, and all of these background shapes are going to move, as well as this circle right here. You can position this circle to go full circle to somewhere around here, for example, and as I said, it's really up to you and your exploration. You can do whatever you want with this file, and this can be really a starting point for you. If you want to improve it, simply add or remove shapes however you want. You can add some additional animations to the menu, to the search. I really encourage you to explore. And finally, as you can see, we have these nice hover effects on our colors. You can add hover effect on this one. As I said, you can change the selector, you can add all kinds of different elements to it. But as I said, this file is simply a starter file for you to explore what you can add to this design. Thank you for watching the video. I really hope you found some value in it. If you did, make sure to press that like button. I upload new videos every single week on design, passive income techniques, motivation and more. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.